My husband asked his mother to move in after his father died and I said yes. 8 months later I was standing in my own kitchen watching her organize a birthday party for my husband that I had been planning for 3 months. Let me take you back to the beginning, because this story didn't start with a birthday party. It started on a cold November evening when my father-in-law passed away quietly in the hospital after a short illness, and my husband Mark sat across from me at our kitchen table with red eyes and said, "She can't be alone in that house." My name is Rachel and at the time I was 33 years old, married to Mark for 8 years, living in a house we loved in Columbus with our 2 kids, Lily, who was 7, and Owen, who had just turned 4. We had a full life, a busy life, the kind of life that runs on routines and school pickups and weekend plans and the particular organized chaos of raising 2 children while both working full-time. It was good. It was ours. And when Mark said those words across the kitchen table that November evening, I looked at his face and I said yes, because he was grieving and because Beverly was alone and because it felt like the right thing to do. Beverly moved in January. She was 68 years old, sharp and capable and not remotely fragile, which I would come to understand more clearly as the months went on. She had raised Mark in a house where she ran everything, the schedules, the meals, the social calendar, the way things were organized and displayed and maintained, and she had done it well, by all accounts. Mark spoke of his childhood with genuine warmth. The house had always been clean, dinner had always been on the table, everything had always been where it was supposed to be. Beverly was a woman who knew how to run a home and who found deep satisfaction in doing so. The problem was that this was not her home. The first few weeks were genuinely fine. She was helpful in the way that an extra pair of hands in a house with 2 small children is always helpful. She picked up Lily from school when I had late meetings, she made dinner on the nights I was exhausted, she sat with Owen during his afternoon cartoons so I could answer emails without someone climbing on my lap. Mark was relieved. I was grateful. I told myself this was going to work. And then, gradually, it stopped working. It started small enough that I almost didn't notice. She rearranged the pantry because she said she couldn't find anything. She moved the dish rack to the other side of the sink because it dried better there, apparently. She replaced the hand soap in the bathroom with a brand she preferred without mentioning it. None of these things were catastrophic on their own, and I let each one go individually because individually they were small and I didn't want to seem petty and Mark was still grieving and Beverly was still adjusting. But adjusting was not what Beverly was doing. By March she had redone the linen closet, replaced our coffee maker with one she bought herself without asking, moved the furniture in the living room to a configuration that she found more practical, and started buying groceries according to her own list rather than mine. She cooked most evenings now, which meant she cooked what she wanted to cook, which meant that the specific pasta dish Lily loved had disappeared from the weekly rotation because Beverly thought pasta twice a week was excessive. I started saying things to Mark. Quietly at first, carefully, the way you bring things up when you're trying not to start a fight. He listened and he nodded and he said he would talk to her, and sometimes he did, and it would improve for about a week and then settle back into the same pattern. He was caught in the middle in a way that I understood was genuinely painful for him. His mother was grieving, she was filling her time the only way she knew how, and asking her to stop doing the things that made her feel useful felt cruel. I understood all of that. And I was running out of patience anyway. The situation with the children was where it got harder. Lily and Owen adored Beverly, which was not the problem. The problem was that Beverly had very clear ideas about how children should be raised and those ideas did not always align with mine. Owen had a list of foods he was not eating yet, not because he was sick, but because we were introducing them gradually after a mild allergy scare earlier in the year and our pediatrician had given us a specific plan. Beverly thought the plan was overcautious. She started giving him things from the list, just small amounts, she said, just to show him they were fine. When I found out I said clearly and directly that I needed her to follow the pediatrician's guidance. She said she had raised a child and knew what she was doing. That was the first time I walked out of a room mid-conversation because I didn't trust what I would say if I stayed. I went to Mark that evening and I said, "This is becoming a real problem." He said he knew. He said he was sorry. He said he would talk to her again. And he did, and she apologized, and things were better for 2 weeks. And then it was September and my husband's birthday was coming up and I had been planning his party for 3 months. Mark's birthday was on a Saturday in late September and I had been planning it since July. Not an enormous party, just the people who mattered, about 20 friends and family members, dinner in the backyard, string lights, a cake from the bakery he loved that I had ordered 6 weeks in advance. I had the menu planned, the playlist ready, the decorations bought. I had told Beverly about it in August, clearly and specifically, so there would be no confusion about what was happening and when. What I did not know was that Beverly had been making her own plans at the same time. I found out on the Wednesday before the Saturday when Mark's sister called me to ask what she should bring to the birthday lunch. I said, "What birthday lunch?" She said the one Beverly had organized for Saturday afternoon, family only, at the house. I stood in my car in the parking lot of my office and asked her to repeat that. She did. Beverly had called the family, Mark's aunts, his cousins, his sister, his childhood friends, and invited them to a lunch at our house on Saturday afternoon, which was 3 hours before my party was scheduled to begin. I drove home that evening in a very specific kind of quiet that Mark recognized immediately when I walked through the door. He asked what was wrong. I told him. His face did something complicated and then he said he hadn't known, which I believed, because Mark is not someone who keeps things from me and his surprise was genuine. He said he would talk to her. He talked to her. She said she had only wanted to do something nice for her son. She said she didn't see why there was a problem since both things could happen on the same day. She said the lunch would be finished well before my party started and that it would actually be lovely to have the family there for both. She said this as if the problem were simply one of scheduling and not one of a woman who had walked into the middle of something I had been building for 3 months and planted herself there without asking. I did not handle the next 20 minutes particularly well. I want to be honest about that. I said things that were true but said them at a volume and with an edge that I am not entirely proud of. I said that this was not her house and not her party and not her decision to make. I said that I had been planning this for 3 months and that she had known about it and had gone ahead and organized something that directly conflicted with it without asking me or Mark. I said that this was not the first time and that I was done pretending it was fine when it was not fine. Beverly cried. Mark stood between us looking like someone trying to stop 2 trains from hitting each other. Lily appeared in the doorway in her pajamas because it was past bedtime and the voices had woken her up, and that was the moment I stopped talking because whatever needed to be said did not need to be said in front of a 7-year-old who was looking at us with frightened eyes. I took Lily back to bed. I sat with her until she fell asleep. And then I went and sat in our bedroom alone for a long time. Mark came in about an hour later and sat on the edge of the bed and said, "This isn't working." I said, "No, it isn't." He said he was sorry. I said I was sorry too, for how I had handled the last 20 minutes, but that I needed him to understand that the problem was not the birthday lunch. The problem was 8 months of small things that had accumulated into something that no longer felt small, and the birthday lunch was just the moment when I ran out of room to hold it. He said he knew. He said he had been watching it happen and had kept hoping it would resolve itself and that he was wrong to have hoped that instead of acting. He said he loved his mother and he loved me and he needed to find a way for both of those things to be true at the same time without one of them coming at the cost of the other. We talked until after midnight. It was one of the harder conversations of our marriage, not because we were fighting but because we were being genuinely honest with each other about something that had been building for months and that neither of us had fully addressed. I told him what I needed, which was my home back. He told me what he needed, which was for his mother to be okay. And somewhere in that conversation we started talking about what okay could actually look like. Beverly's birthday lunch happened on the Saturday. I made the decision to let it happen because canceling it at that point would have hurt people who had nothing to do with the situation. Mark's family came for lunch and it was fine, genuinely fine. And then they stayed for my party in the evening and that was also fine. The cake was perfect. Mark made a speech about being grateful for the people in his life and he looked at me when he said it in a way that told me we were going to be all right. The real conversation with Beverly happened the following week. Mark had it first, alone with her, and then we all three sat down together. It was not easy and it was not short. Beverly was defensive at first and then she was sad and then she was honest in a way that I had not expected. She said she had been trying to make herself necessary because without Frank she didn't know what she was for. She said running things was the only way she knew how to feel useful and she hadn't understood that she was taking something from me in the process of trying to give something to her son. I did not immediately forgive everything in that conversation. But I heard her. And something in the way she said it, without excuses, without redirecting the blame, made it possible to stay in the room and keep talking. The solution took another 2 months to work out practically. There was a small house 3 streets away that came on the market in November, and Mark and Beverly and I looked at it together one Saturday morning and Beverly stood in the little back garden and said it reminded her of the garden she and Frank had kept for 30 years. We made an offer the following week. Beverly moved into her house in January, exactly 1 year after she had moved into ours. On moving day she stood in our kitchen one last time and looked around at it, at the dish rack back on the side of the sink I preferred, at the pantry organized the way I organized it, at the hand soap I liked by the sink, and she said, "I think I made this harder than it needed to be." I said, "I think we both could have handled it better." She nodded. Then she picked up the last box and carried it out to the car. She comes for dinner every Sunday. She takes the kids on Saturday mornings when Mark and I want the house to ourselves. She calls before she comes and she knocks before she enters and she has not once rearranged anything in my kitchen. Last month Lily had a birthday and Beverly asked me 3 weeks in advance what I was planning so she could work around it. I told her what I was planning. She said it sounded perfect. And it was.